Edinburgh. Unquestionably a beautiful place to visit at any time of year. But for me, there's nothing quite like visiting in August, when it puts on what has become the largest celebration of arts and culture in the world. Having made several trips to Edinburgh specifically for the festival, I hope this video will peel back the curtain on why I love this unique experience. Imagine an entire community throwing a party for 3 consecutive weeks. One that embodies the vibe of Glastonbury but focuses on all aspects of performance. Then take all of that diverse talent and energy and throw it into every nook and cranny of a city that also just happens to be one of the UK's finest. That is the Edinburgh Festival. So in this video, I'll be taking you through our 3 fun-filled days of stand-up, musicals, a cappella, improv and magic, as well as the vibrancy of the city itself. If you're new to the channel, we aim to make travel movies where the location is king, hoping you might just find your next holiday inspiration. This is Suitcase Monkey, taking to the stage at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Following a picturesque 5-hour train journey from King's Cross, we arrived into Waverley Station, the most central way into Edinburgh. We had booked an Airbnb a 15-minute walk away and made the way to meet our host. I've always found Airbnb to be the best way to enjoy Edinburgh. It just feels like a good homely fit. Our host even made this lovely scrapbook with suggestions on places to see and things to do whilst we were there. The big idea of the Fringe Festival is that if you want to perform and there's a venue that will have you, then you are going to perform, whether that be for 1 or 1,000 people. There's no individual or committee that decides the calendar of events, making it the biggest gathering of its kind, and second only to the Olympics in terms of global ticket sales. And nowhere is this party atmosphere more abundant than walking up the main high street itself with skilled performers all vying for your attention. The first show we wanted to see was at The Tron, a pub with a black box theatre tucked away inside. As we sat there waiting for showtime, we were excited that this would be our first of many, with each performance taking us inside their own wonderful world. Sarah Barron is a stand-up we've seen a couple of times before, so we thought it would be a great way to start things off since she never disappoints. Reviewed as filthy and fearless, she's a great storyteller, and her show centred around the fakeness of social media and let's just say the less positive side of marriage and having babies. She also joked how she unknowingly wrote a porno when she was just 13, and the next thing I know, I'm being roped into reading lines from the original script. This was my first lesson in never ever sitting on the front row for stand-up.
And it was real wild.
With only 30 minutes from the end of Sarah's show to the start of our next, we went with what sounded like a good idea at the time. Enter a very Brexit musical. Now, I don't want to be too deep into critical reviews here, so let's just say that this show was almost worth the £5 entry fee. Now, obviously all opinions here are of my own, but this was my next lesson in the benefits of sitting on the back row. It was a satirical musical telling the story of the British referendum, starring none other than Joris Bonson and David Dameron. Lacking in humour, melody and largely acting, it just wasn't for me. But this is actually one of the great things about the festival. Paying only £5 and 60 minutes of your life is always a small price to pay when there is equally the chance of getting something unique, unexpected and amazing on a whim. More on that later. Although we had specifically visited Edinburgh for the Fringe Festival, there are actually 4 other celebrations going on at the same time. There's the International Festival, the Art Festival, the Book Festival, and the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. Taking place against the backdrop of the Edinburgh Castle, performers and infantries deliver a world-class military show rooted in Scottish tradition. It proves so popular, however, that if you haven't been wise enough to pre-book a ticket, it is likely you won't be seeing it, which is exactly what happened to us. So if this is something that interests you, I'll link their details below, along with social links for ourselves, so you can follow our next trip as it happens. During this year's festival, 3,500 shows would take place, all hosted across 300 venues. This means that traditional venues are in short supply, so you'll see these bespoke venue signs hanging all over the city to indicate that something is going on inside. This year, a venue meant anything from a theatre, a tunnel, a swimming pool, the ladies' toilets, a biscuit factory, a bus, and in our next case, an unused neon-lit karaoke room. Waiting in an underground corridor, we didn't really know what we were about to watch. Bumble Me Tinders was described as different stand-ups every single night telling their online dating horror stories. And since Chiaki and myself met through a dating app, we thought we'd give it a go. This turned out to be a great fun little show, if that's even the right word in this case. It was basically fitting 25 people into a private karaoke room that was at best most built for 10. Overall, and to its credit, it actually felt more just like hanging out with friends, with a few of them just happening to be comedic storytellers. It involved lots of interaction with both audience and stand-ups, telling the room of their dating nightmares. At one point, they asked the audience if anyone in the room had actually met online, and for some very un-British reason, I stuck my hand up. Possibly drunk, I proudly told the story that it was 3 years ago to that very day that we had actually started chatting online, and now we were married. Following the ahs and applause that followed, it dawned on me that I had so far taken part in 2/3 of the shows that we'd been at. If someone else had been to both this and the Sarah Barron stand-up, they would no doubt be wondering who the hell this narcissist is. By this point, we were absolutely knackered, and it was time for a cup of tea and some sleep. Our first show of the morning was over at Pleasance Dome. It was for a show called Lights Over Tesco Car Park and had been featured in numerous outlets as being one of the best plays to see. In fact, it was so featured that it had completely sold out. After noticing that another show we wanted to see was also fully booked, we realised we needed a new strategy. We grabbed a coffee, sat down beneath the dome, and made a list of shows we didn't want to miss. This is something I would actually recommend in hindsight. There are so many shows happening concurrently that missing good stuff is almost a given, and we had to make some difficult choices here. We did discover though that the Pleasance Dome and neighbouring Bristow Square is actually a great place to visit even without a ticket. So our first show of the day was karoshi. This is a Japanese word meaning death by job-related exhaustion. Knowing the dark subject matter we were about to experience, I was surprised to see so many young children seemingly lining up for it. Maybe their parents looked at their jolly old faces, filled with hopes and dreams, and wanted to show them the true horror of what life would soon become. Either that, or they were just here to see science magic or grumpy pants. But karoshi is a great example of just how varied the Fringe can be, and I guess why it is called Fringe in the first place. It was essentially a switched-on lady called Mel doing a 50-minute PowerPoint presentation about what it feels like to die inside every time your boss says something like, "This new thing is an opportunity," when what they actually mean is, "This new thing is shit." It was the gamble that totally made up for yesterday's Brexit musical. We quickly followed karoshi with a play called Feed. After learning about the sold-out Lights Over Tesco car park, we were handed this flyer at the same box office. Described as similar to Black Mirror, we were instantly sold. This was a well-written, well-performed, thought-provoking sensory overload. The story focused on a YouTuber who gets in too deep, and the terrible world of social media swallows everything up with a mixture of manipulation and fake news. And with that in mind, please do follow me on Instagram for some great photography, interaction, and joyful laughs along the way. After spending way too much time in the dark, we wandered around the city's streets for a good old-fashioned spot of sightseeing. Our last show of the day was one of my festival highlights, where Dave Anick, a highly skilled magician, had one simple goal.
For the next hour, I'm going to prove to you that I am literally the best magician.
To achieve this, he went on to go through
every genre of magic, until I have proven that I'm literally the best magician.
What followed were rope tricks, card tricks,
You see it change in your hand.
children's magic,
Doesn't matter how old you are, that's amazing.
dangerous magic, psychological magic,
That's some Darren Brown shit right there.
and everything in between.
When I say catch them. It's not an illusion, they'll hit you in the face. All right?
A great showman with fast thinking and fast talking, his sleight of hand and mastery of an audience was great fun to witness close up.
Are you not entertained?
5 stars.
Thank you.
Our final day was a bit more slow-paced. We started our morning with the relatively easy hike up to Arthur's Seat. Surrounded by over 600 acres of land, Arthur's Seat is part of an extinct volcano rising 250 meters high. If the weather's good, I think this is a must-do trip and offers some of the best views of Scotland's capital. Our last show of the entire trip was actually something that caught us completely off guard. Chiaki is a big fan of a cappella and was something different we thought we should see. So we randomly booked tickets for Out of the Blue and walked up to the venue expecting to just wander in as normal. Not knowing that Out of the Blue actually have more than 16 million views on YouTube, the queue to get in came as something of a shock. We later learnt that Out of the Blue were runners-up on Britain's Got Talent. So imagine you didn't know who Paul and John were, but went to see the Beatles anyway. That was how we felt as we took to our seats. As the lights went down, it was as if the cast of Glee had made a triumphant return, and some girls near us started to go a bit crazy, as if John Lennon himself had risen. Despite being completely caught off guard, I had to admit they were a very talented group. With perfectly blended vocal harmonies all hitting the right note, they made for a fun show with beatboxing, funky grooves, and their own original take on well-beloved pop songs. Another Fringe surprise.
Looking cloudy or grey. I won't even roll the dice so that you can't play me twice, no babe. Who do you think I am? Well, I'm gonna take my own road, and I'm sorry, baby, you can't go. Gotta hit the ground running just as fast as I can.
For my next video, I'll be going through my personal tips and tricks to get the most out of the Edinburgh Fringe. I only post every 6 to 8 weeks, so please subscribe to not miss future videos and enjoy my back catalogue if you'd like some travel inspiration around the world. And I promise I won't spam you if you hit that notification bell. As ever, please give this video a like below since it really helps us spread the word, and drop me a comment to let me know your thoughts on Edinburgh or this video in general. It's always good to hear from you all. Until the next time, thanks for watching Suitcase Monkey.